Hi everyone, it's Michelle Markey with Medina Domestic Art Studio. And several weeks ago, I had someone through YouTube ask me if I could do a more detailed video on how to do shading. And I also have a lady who just recently bought this particular chicken and blue bonnets. I'll just kind of push this over so that you can see the whole pattern. And so I thought between a shading issue and then helping my client understand how to color this, that I would go ahead and create a video that would kill two birds with one stone. So, and no pun intended, by the way. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about coloring this chicken, primarily the way the feathers are. And if there's just a general overall rule that I would say is applicable to shading, and that is you always want to start with your light colors first and work towards your darker colors. Now, I'm not even going to bother with her comb. We're really just going to focus on the body because this is where most of the shading occurs. So I'm going to set the finished one aside and show you I've got the pattern underneath here. And this particular bird is done with Inktense pencils. And so I'm going to put them right here so that you can see what I'm going to work with. And I'll name them as I work with them. Although, of course, as always with all of my kits, you should have a detailed description of the pencils and a number and all that. The other thing I'm actually going to do today, too, is I want to also bring in just the idea of using Inktense blocks. Now, I believe this one is, I'm looking at the number right here. I think this one is Baked Earth, which will correspond to one of these pencils. And then this one is Red Oxide, which I know for a fact corresponds with, oops, not that one, this pencil here. So sometimes when you're coloring a very large area, it's just a ease of use type of thing. So I'll show this briefly today. I'm not going to focus so much on this, but I just do want to bring this in as a type of tool that you can use because these are just pure ink. And I like them when you need to cover a very large area. Okay, I'm going to set those aside, however, for the time being. And I'm going to start coloring now. Pardon me while I sit down and get myself comfortable. It's been a long summer. I've been doing lots of shows. It's been great meeting many of you. Hope the chance comes down the road here in the next year as I do more shows to meet some of you who follow my channel on YouTube. Oops. Of course, don't do what I just did, which is open up the lid and then try to go to shake it. That's not a very good idea. So, and of course, as always, keep a fair amount of paper towels on hand. Hopefully you won't do anything as stupid as that, but I'm prone to that these days. I guess that's just a question of AGE, haha. Okay, now I really will get the fabric medium in my little pie plate. There is a multitude of different ways to go about shading, and so this is going to be just one way, and I think hopefully it's the easiest for anyone who's a beginner learning. And as I said, you're going to want to start out with the lighter areas. If you remember the picture I showed you earlier, the tail and some of the hen's chest and the beak are all done with a yellow. This is hard to read. In fact, it's almost completely illegible, but this is Sicilian yellow. It's kind of a more goldy yellow as opposed to a sun yellow, which is what I normally use. But I like the fact that this chicken, I wanted to color it more in chicken type of colors rather than getting as kind of crazy as I sometimes do. So of course you can come up here and you can put a little bit of color on the beak. That's no big deal. But what I really want to do is show you how, as you color this, you're going to want to build the color. So right here, you're going to come in and color starting with your lightest color first. And that is overall a general rule for just about anything you are doing, whether it is with Inktense pencils, whether it is with watercolor pencils, or whether it is with fabric markers, and even gel pens to a certain extent. because it's much harder to try to apply a light color to a dark color that's already in place. Now, I'm just following my little own sample here. I haven't written these instructions up. I thought I had, which is another reason I'm doing this, is so that I can remind myself exactly how I colored this to begin with, so that I can post the instructions out on my website. So again, since the tail feathers had yellow in them, I'm going to go ahead and apply that down. Now, one of the keys, I think, to successful shading is you want to overlap the color as much as possible. So you're going to see that I'm carrying this yellow down all the way, which if you were to look at the pattern again, it's really hard to tell that the yellow is down there. But there's a base of that. And what happens is no matter what dark color I use on top of this lighter color, it will never be as dark as just the single color by itself. So as I come to the second layer of feathers, looking at my sample, I can tell that I've obviously put some lighter color because the colors that are on the feathers are actually lighter than that. And to be honest with you, I think I've carried it all the way into here. Now, by the time I start working towards where the area is darker, I don't put quite as much yellow down as possible. Now, the other area where there's a fair amount of yellow other than the chest is right here where the wing kind of folds up underneath her neck. And I'm going to put a little bit of layer of yellow there. And then last but not least, what I want is to kind of have the breast look like light is shining on it. So you're going to come in and just lightly, and you don't have to be neat about this, just throw down some color along the breast line, all the way down towards the tummy, and just put a little bit there. Now, again, when you're going to see this as I start to color, you're not going to be able to really see this yellow. However, it's going to make the subsequent layers of color that you put down here look lighter than it really is. Okay, so the next thing you're going to want to do, this is my favorite gold. This is sienna gold. And what I'm going to do is, again, as you come into something that folds underneath, like a lot of times it's petals, and I'm not doing any videos on bluebonnets today. I've done a fair amount that are out there already, but this was the same thing that happens with petals. As a petal comes towards the center, similar to the way these feathers are, you want to make the color deeper as it reaches into folds, because that's actually what a shadow does, is it becomes deeper. And as you'll notice, it's slightly a deeper color than the Sicilian yellow. And again, I'm just carrying that down all the way. I'm going to come over here, put in a little bit more of the sienna gold here. And I'm not being careful. In fact, I encourage people, don't try to be so perfectly careful with this. You don't want it to look staged. I hope that gets a point across. But what you don't want it to look like are just globs of color. What you want is that it needs to look spread out. It doesn't need to look like you can see a start and finish to the color line itself. And again, I'm coming back in when there's some more deeper area. Just putting a little bit more of this color down. And actually going to bring maybe now a little bit more. Now you notice I didn't put any yellow there because it wasn't quite as light as, say, some of these other areas. But you still want to layer color, so now I'm going to lay some more of the sienna gold all over this kind of deeper area of the feathers. And then where I had put some of the Sicilian yellow, and I'm going to move this way so that you can see it, you're going to overlap it again. Now, you're not going to completely cover the first layer, but you are going to want to color all around it so that when it comes time to blending, again, you cannot tell where one color starts and the other one stops. And then last but not least, you're going to want to bring some more color up here on the chicken's breast. And again, you're going to bring it up further this time. Okay, and see, I'm not being super careful. That's not the point here. The point is just to build layers, because each subsequent layer that comes along kind of covers up and blends more of the next layer. Now, here's where I'm going to use just quickly. This is baked earth. And, you know, I'm going to show you if I wanted to do a really wide area. Do you see what I'm doing here? Now, I'm not crazy about the sharp lines, but I'll work that out with my fabric medium. But this is why I actually like these blocks. It's because you can really get a super quick coverage of color without having to sit there and constantly color, which again, it's okay. You don't, you know, it's just a question of preference, and I always just like to give everybody as much of a choice as possible. So once again, overlapping some of the color. Now, let's see, I'm going to bring a little bit up onto the neck, not much, because our last color, which is red oxide, is going to be the last and final layer. Now, you can layer as many colors as you want. Sadly, what does happen, however, is you can end up muddying colors if you put too many on. So I think when this is all said and done, there's going to be a total of 4. I really would never do anything more than about 5 because the color can become muddy after that. Okay, last but not least is that's baked earth. Oh, by the way, I mean, this is the pencil version of baked earth, you know, so you can come along if you felt like you didn't like the feel or handle of that block, then you can come in here and put that down. Now, I'm not doing any, this is all I want to keep this as yellow as possible. So once again, I'm not putting it everywhere. Let me put just a little bit down here because some of these feathers I want to maintain that yellow look, but others I just want to go ahead and build the darker, more, I'm not sure. I know there's a color for hens. Maybe Rhode Island red, is it? I don't know. I'm not very conversant in chicken. So I'm sorry that if I say the wrong thing as far as what a color of chicken should be, and somebody can correct me later and I will correct my video. All right, so now that's the second to last color, and now this is red oxide. And this is basically a very strong rust color. And here's where you're really going to start doing a lot of what I call more fine, detailed coloring. And I'm just coming in here where any of if there's white showing, number one, I want to cover it. Like these tips are still white, so I want to come in and color that with this. I really want to show a contrast between the tips of these feathers and the back of the tail feathers there. So I'm just bringing in some of this. Now I want it to kind of fade off. I don't want it to be too dark here. But as I come to something that's underneath like this, notice I'm starting to really push down on my pencil lead and get kind of a deeper color for the under feathers, if you will. Again, I'm just coloring over where I'd colored before. And coming in here again to these tips, I want a good strong contrast. Now, one thing I tell people, you're putting down what is kind of what I consider to be the base color. Once we start using the fabric medium, you can come in and deepen your color. You can also try to change it a bit by putting more color in areas where you didn't have it before. Again, the only thing you cannot do is you cannot really lighten the color up. If you felt like you'd made a mistake and you did want a deeper color, you'd really have to paint it over with white and kind of start all over. And that can be kind of messy, and it also doesn't look quite as nice as just having the original layer of color. So it's one of the reasons why a lot of these instructions I give you guys, it has a paper copy. All that paper copy is so that you can lay down your color first and get an idea of how you want it to look. Okay, pardon me, I'm looking over to make sure I'm coloring this correctly as what the sample looks like, and I am so far. So again, anything that's kind of tucked underneath or where there's going to be a shadow, I'm coming in with deeper color. I'm doing this on my kitchen table, and I think there's some stuff still underneath on the table. I I had a show this weekend in Fredericksburg, which is phenomenal, by the way. Love the Fredericksburg ladies. They were wonderful hostess for their quilt show, and the quilt show was great. It never ceases to amaze me how many talented people there are out there, and we all live our little quiet lives, and we never get to see this talent except at shows like this, but there certainly was a very strong depth. And I'm going to come in here, since again this is a shadow and you've got your top ones up here, then the shadow underneath here would certainly be darker with a little bit of more color. Same thing here. I'm trying to go actually fairly quick because nobody likes to sit and watch a 30-minute video on somebody else talking, and at least I don't. And so I don't want to waste anybody else's time, but I do want to try to get the point across because I have had the questions asked. And then I'm going to put in really some deep color, because now if you look at a chicken, as it comes up to the neck, the color does tend to be more intense. So you see I left a lot of white space. So I'm covering that all over with the red oxide. Let me get its neck. And then some of these feathers that are underneath. And as something recedes away from the focus, you also want to make that darker as well. Okay. Just about there. So that's my first layer of color. Now I'm going to bring the other one over real quick so you can take a peek at it. Let me fold it up so it makes it easier to put it underneath the camera. And so you've got an idea of what that looks like. And then this is what the finished one looks like. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start our fabric medium blending. Now this is going to be probably a 2 or 3 step process, because we're going to want to put the initial amount of fabric medium over and then decide where we want to darken up with some of our various different colors to make sure that we have this kind of great blended effect. Okay. Now I'm going to recommend, we normally don't use this big of a brush because we normally don't have this kind of a big area to actually color. But you can see this is a size 4, and it is just a kind of a beveled flat edge, and of course it's Taklon. You know, I love Taklon used on fabric. Okay, so the very first thing I like to do is I start with the light first and work towards the dark. So I'm just laying the fabric medium down, scrubbing a tiny bit, but try not to bring any of this dark into your yellow. You want to try to maintain the yellow brightness with the deeper Sicilian yellow is giving it its shadow. So work all of the tail feathers that are light first. You can see I'm just coming down using a bit of a scrubbing motion to where it hits that one kind of light area. And then I work my way up, kind of feathering the color. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come into the lighter area, but this time I am going to work my brush up into the red oxide and the baked earth. And I don't care if I'm blend. I mean, I want it to blend. So if you look at this, I'm dragging some of the reddish brown baked earth / red oxide color down into the yellow, because I don't want that really strong distinction between the I don't want to see it just stop and start abruptly. I want the colors to fade into one another. And when you're working along a line, you want to scrub your brush right up against there. Try to work at an angle as you scrub your brush along the line and blend. Okay, oh, that's looking really good. I'm very happy with this. I haven't had a chance to color much lately because I've been on the road so much, so this is another excuse for me to get some of my coloring time in, which I always enjoy. If I could, I would color every day. Try to, at least. Okay, so you see, I'm just bringing some in. Now, I'm looking over at my other one, and I'm really realizing this is a little bit yellow. So I'm going to grab, I'll start with the lightest first. Now, this is another thing I'm going to teach you with these blocks. Now, what I want is I just want some more of an orangey color, a lighter orangey color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush in the fabric medium, and just down here at the end, I'm going to kind of rub my brush, and if you can see that, I'm starting to get color, and I just keep rubbing the fabric medium against that until I get kind of the hue I'm looking for. Then I'm going to come back over and, that's great. I'm adding a little bit more red to that to take away some of that really harsh Sicilian yellow color and try to put more of the red in the tail feathers. Now, the other way to do this, and I'm going to do this at my own peril, is you can come in directly with the wet end and put a little bit more color directly on the wet fabric. When you do that, immediately come back in and scrub that area so that you can blend out the color. That's very nice. So see, I wanted a bit more of a distinction between the yellow here and make this kind of more of a reddish gold looking color, so that it looks like it's coming deep into the feathers. Okay, let me keep on going here. I think I'll work up this direction. I have to say, I loved this little bird when I saw it. This is an embroidery library pattern. You know, I always like to share with those of you who are already embroidery enthusiasts about where I get my patterns. Of course, embroidery library happens to also be one of my favorites, as well as Stitch Delight, Oh My Crafty Supply, Embroidery Online, Urban Threads, anything which you find that has a really distinct outline stitch can be used to do this. And yes, to answer the question some of you have asked me in the past, I do have my own patterns digitized. I used to digitize myself. I just don't have enough time anymore. I enjoy it. It's a great process. Okay, now here's a situation where I really want to darken up, again, the underlying area, and I'm going to pull out, this time I'm just going to pull out my pencil and just add a little bit more color. This is Baked Earth, and kind of bring it down, maybe even put a little bit down towards the tips. I don't want the red oxide, it's a little bit too deep. I just want to bring in some more color to really get that sense of shadow underneath there. But I also like to believe that the sun is shining down on her wing, and so it would look lighter than the rest of her. So again, once you lay your color down, come back in and just keep blending. And you notice I just keep reworking it. I mean, I'm not trying to finesse this yet. Maybe once it's dry, you can go over your own coloring 2 to 3 times before the fabric will no longer accept the fabric medium. So you could go ahead and color this, put your fabric medium down, and then if you wanted to step away for a bit and just come back and look at it again, that would be a great way to not just kind of overload it right from the get-go, but instead give yourself the opportunity to come back in and add after you've had a chance to review it and after it's had a chance to dry, because sometimes these colors will lighten up a bit as the fabric medium dries. And so it's sometimes advisable just to not put all your color in one basket. There I go again, making a pun, haha. But you do really want to give yourself the opportunity to always add color after the fact, because you can. The problem is if you try to go too strong right off the bat, it's just not going to let you do it, and then you're not going to be happy with the results, and you're going to want to start over. And I'm a firm believer in color it once and don't do it again. There's too many other things to color. Why waste your time on doing something twice when you can do it once and be happy with it the first time? Okay, so you see what I'm doing here. Again, as you get towards these areas where the red is supposed to be more intense, you want to work the red down into the yellow. But you also want to maintain that brighter yellow color. And you can see what happens no matter how much red I try to drag down here. It still keeps a lighter color because there was yellow there to begin with. So bear that in mind as you're coloring, that anytime you put something lighter down first, the top coat color can never look as dark as it is as an original color. And let me just kind of do this here real quick. I think I'm going to have to come back in, particularly where I'm coloring right there. Yeah, along this back area, and I'm going to pull out, instead of this baked earth, I'm going to pull out the red oxide because I want it to definitely look, the further again away that something recedes into the background, the darker you want it to be. So let me see which, here it is. I'm going to come in with the pencil here and really see, oh yes, that's exactly what I wanted to do. You really want to deepen this color as it goes into, particularly down here as it goes into the underneath of the belly. That should be your darkest areas down here. And I'll get to that with the fabric medium here in just a sec. And just again, keep working it, keep working it, keep working it. And if you want to bring more of that color up here, in fact, now that I'm looking at it, maybe I even want to bring a tiny bit more. Not a lot, just maybe kind of outline the underneath around those top feathers. Because what that does is it also causes these top feathers to pop out a little bit more, and it gives it kind of a 3D effect. And once again, you're just going to grab your brush and drag down. Oh, I'm very happy with this. Very, very happy. I'm hoping maybe somebody will want to have me teach this at a guild or a quilt shop, because this is a cute pattern. And of course, it's very Texas themed with its blue bonnets. Maybe in the spring I can get up a couple of classes on this, because I love this chicken. You know, I'm big on chickens, as many of you who've come to the shows have seen. I've got several different chickens. All right, just about finished here. Sorry that this is such a long video, but again, I wanted to explain this as fully as I could. And notice again this kind of area down here. You know, I'm going to actually maybe add some more red to it because it's kind of going underneath, but I did want that breast to have a lighter look to it. And let me think, maybe I want to darken the neck just to, because then here's where I start finessing things. Okay, so maybe the back of the head, because again, it's receding into the background, and try to rub your pencil as close to the stitch line as possible. And here's where I'm also going to switch over. I'm going to go from a fat brush to a finer brush to start filling in the details. One of the things, if you guys buy full kits from me, what I try to do is I try to sell you a packet of a variety of sizes. Now the beginner kits, no, you only get one paintbrush, but the other kits actually do get some variety so that you can have switch back and forth as you're working in certain areas. Just put a little bit more here across the back to help bring out some of the definition. And let's just see, maybe just a tiny bit down here. I'm putting fabric medium down first, and the reason to do that, which you'll see here in just a sec, is because I really want a nice, oh yeah, look at that. So you can put fabric medium down direct first, and then come back in with your color to really deepen the effect. Oh, this is looking great. Yes, I'm my own cheerleader. And you should be too. Everybody should cheer themselves on, particularly with the way the world is these days. All right. No, I think that's about it. I mean, I'm getting my point across. I might work this some more, but what I really wanted to do was to show you how to go about shading. I'm going to move this so that you can see it, and then maybe bring over the other one. I try to make these as similar as possible. Let me bring this and scooch it over, and then oops, sorry about that. I've always told you guys I am not a professional videographer. One of these days maybe I can afford one. My nephew needs to come down and help. He's great at this. So you can see between the two birds, yeah, they look pretty similar. And that's what I'm always hoping when you guys read my instructions, that when you go through instructions like this, that you can see when you go to color that it should look pretty darn close to the way this one looks. Well, that's about it. And as always, if you have any questions, you can go to my website, www.medinadomarts@aol.com, and you can email me, or you can email me direct at medinadomarts@aol.com. Hope this helps. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.